Hey, good evening. My name is Nathan Brand. I'm a chef in Johnson City, opening a restaurant downtown. I'm here at Food City to make a couple recipes for you. The first one we're going to do is some pickled mustard seeds. So we've got our mustard seeds right here. If you've ever eaten one, you'll know it's pretty intense. Got wasabi sort of flavor. It's in the same family of plants. We've got some wine, just a little bit that we'll add to our pickling liquid. We've got some cider vinegar. I love Bragg's. And then we've got a little bit of just basic white sugar and some water just to adjust the flavors and the acidity of this whole thing. So we're gonna just do this the old-fashioned way without measuring it all out. It's gonna be kind of fun. So I like to do about, a cup or so of these mustard seeds. I like to do a little splash of the wine. Then we'll do some cider vinegar. You can see it's really cloudy because this has all the mother in it. So if you ever want to make your own vinegar, you can just take some old wine and pour this into it, and it will start to grow, and after a few months you'll have your own vinegar. That's a really fun thing that I highly recommend, because then you can start to get experimental with it and make like a root beer vinegar, you know what I mean? Got a little water here, we're just gonna thin it out, just a splash. I'm gonna go ahead and get the heat on here. Get that going, and then we'll add just a touch of sugar.
How much heat do you use?
Oh, that's good. I'm just gonna get this going. I'm gonna start it on high, and then I'll turn it down to very low. And what's gonna happen, you can see the texture of these mustard seeds. They're really dry, they're a seed, right? And that's how we keep them. But when we pickle them, they sort of swell and they become sort of a caviar-like texture. And it's really, really pleasurable to pop that in your mouth. And so that's why a lot of little canapes or past dishes at parties or weddings will have that little textural complement. But you also get a little bit of that astringency, but not nearly as much as when it's dry, because it's not as intense. The flavor has kind of gone into the liquid. So we'll give this a little bit of a stir. Again, we've got this on high heat. We've added all of our ingredients so far. We've added the wine, just a splash of that for a little bit of depth. We've added our awesome cider vinegar, sugar, a little water to sort of balance out the flavors. And then we're gonna add kosher salt. If you actually zoom in here, you'll see that I have two different kinds of salt for you to try. So we've got kosher, which has the larger grains, right? Usually comes in that big box. And then you've got iodized, and that usually comes in that cylinder. And the iodized I don't use because it has a bitterness from the iodine. And so I always go with kosher salt, which has a cleaner, more direct salinity. So we're gonna use a little of that in here. We're just gonna do 2 pinches for now, and then we'll see what happens. We're gonna bring this up to temperature for just a moment. All right, so we're gonna come down and take a look at our pickled mustard seeds over here. You can see that they're starting to gelatinize, so they are starting to become softer. You can see they have this sort of almost soupy texture. Pretty soon they're gonna be like caviar. One thing that's really interesting about making something like this is taking into consideration that you're cooking it and tasting it hot, but you're gonna be serving it cold. And the temperature, a lower temperature desensitizes your taste buds a little bit, so you taste things less intensely. So whenever you're making something like this, if it tastes perfect, but you know you're gonna serve it cold, you wanna add like a pinch of salt, maybe an extra splash of vinegar or a little more sugar to intensify the flavor that you'll be tasting later. So that's a really important tip. We'll come and check back on these when they're ready. All right, so now we're gonna make some collard slaw. And this is actually one of my favorite dishes to make. I make this for my wife and I at home all the time. First, you start with collards. And if you like to cook and you live in the South, and if you're a person like me, you love collard greens stewed on the stove. My dad used to make them when I was a kid with bacon and onion. Sometimes he'd throw some garlic in there, and you get a really great stew down of them with maybe some pork stock or even just water. But that cooks a lot of nutritional value and flavor out of them. So you cook the pork flavor into it, which is really, really delicious. But if you ever want to make something that's really fresh, that keeps for a few days in the fridge, and that's really bright and refreshing. I like to make collard slaw. So we'll take it, we'll start by rolling the slaw up into sort of a cigar shape, just like this, nice and tight. And we'll press down and we'll just slice with our knife here. And this is called chiffonading. And so we will just chiffonade this set of collards really, really thin. And the more surface area here, the quicker that this slaw will happen. Basically, we're going to be cooking the leaves with vinegar. It's sort of the same idea behind ceviche, but just for vegetables. So once we have these nicely shredded, we'll combine them with our magic bowl of already shredded collard greens. And you can get in there and see that texture. They really have a lot of textural components to them. This stem is going to be a really nice crunch later. So it's really, really beautiful. But this, just like with collards that you cook traditionally with heat, is going to wilt down quite a bit. So now we're going to add the rest of our ingredients. And I always start with a little bit of salt and vinegar. And we're going to just do a big couple of pinches of salt here. Not too much, because we're also going to add soy sauce. We'll do some vinegar as well.
So about how much was that?
I would say just under a quarter cup. We'll also do some sesame oil. You can use any oil, but I love toasted sesame oil for its flavor. And some dashes of soy sauce, again, also for flavor. And then we're just going to get in there and massage it. I'm going to use gloves so that my hands stay nice and clean. And what we're doing is just literally massaging it. And that's going to break down that cellular structure, release some of the juices. And you can see that it's turning a little bit brighter green. So I'm going to keep doing this, and we'll be right back. All right, so now we're gonna dig into one of my favorite foods. I keep this at home, and every time a special guest come over, I pop it out, maybe bring out a little bottle of bourbon and relax and just have a chat. So this is country ham from Benton's Country Hams in Madisonville, just south of Knoxville. And they're very famous for their smoked country ham. So this guy is on a stand, and I have a special ham knife that's very flexible so that it makes it easier to slice. We're just going to slice a little bit off of this haunch right here. So this ham has been cured, smoked, and aged for 12 to 24 months. And so it's got a real depth and richness of flavor, and a lot of people say that it doesn't even taste like the ham that they know or the country ham that they know. And this is sort of a Spanish way of traditionally carving these hams, but it's increasingly becoming more popular in the South, which is really exciting to have ham stands like this around. All right, so now that we've got our ham sliced, we're gonna go ahead and plate up just a little bit of a sample. And actually, I'll be cooking a dinner this Friday at the Exchange Place, this Friday, September 22nd, at St. Paul's Episcopal Church here in Kingsport. And we're gonna be serving these exact dishes. So we've got our ham here, nice and beautifully hand cut. And then we're gonna take a little bit of our collard slaw here. You can see it's a really bright green, and that's the vinegar and salt really bringing out some of those colors, almost like it's been blanched. And then if you look closely here, this is pretty cool. Look at how much this has changed. It's got that caviar-like texture, and when you put it in your mouth, it really pops, and it's really, really special. So we're just gonna do a small little bit of this. You don't wanna overload folks with it, but it is really pretty. And that's just a nice little condiment. One of the things I love about all these ingredients here tonight is they will keep for a really long time in the fridge. So this is a little snack you can make anytime.